Hello everyone, this is the Metaphysical McTell Griffin Red. And the name of this video will be called Individualism Will Save Black People. I've wanted to do this video for quite some time. As you know, it's been like a big gap since the last time I made some videos or whatever. I did make that private video concerning magic. Those who viewed it, I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, I had to make that private because it had some very good information, concerning magic and how to use it to get justice and protection. Now, I'm going to be sharing with you some articles and some PDF formats or whatever by certain people concerning the individual. And I really wanted to do this video because there was a video by Bobby Hemmett that I done or whatnot. I will leave it in the description box, and it talks about it's maybe like a 7 or 8 minute video, and in this video he says he talks about black people or whatever, and how historically throughout the planet or whatever, it's never been huge groups of people who have ever made any big changes or anything. It was always a small number of people. That's with anything. And he went on to say that black people are doing okay if you discount the masses of useless eaters out here, which is true. And also, and like I said, this video is gonna have like a spiritual aspect to it as well. And what Bobby Hemmett said in that video was that when you have all these masses of people out there, these zombie-like people or whatnot, you have to look at them as zombies or like backdrops or stage prop people, like NPC characters in a video game. They're like just people that are out there just living, breathing, and eating, going to work, and they are never going to wake up. This is why you constantly talking about people. We got to wake up the people. We got to wake up the people, and what these black leaders and everyone else didn't realize is that the majority of the people out here are just fucking animals. They're animals with clothes. Those with spirit, like I've spoken about in my previous, videos or whatnot, they are the ones that realize there's something wrong here with these people. So I'm actually, going to go into that later, but I would like to share with you some of the articles that I've copied and some of the PDF formatted pamphlets that I have or whatever. If you like them, I will send them to you. They're by Anne Wortham. She's a black woman, and she's definitely an individualist. And the first one I'm going to talk about it's called Individualism, the Only Cure for Racism. Now, I'm not going to read the entire document, but I will share with you some of the great paragraphs that I did find interesting that you should listen up for. It states, if diversity is the cure for racism, why, instead of promoting racial harmony, has it brought racial division and conflict? It is now taken as a virtual axiom that the way to cure racism is through the promulgation of racial and ethnic diversity within corporations, universities, government agencies, and other institutions. The diversity movement has many facets: diversity awareness, diversity training, diversity hiring and admissions, diversity promotions, and diversity accommodation, black student organizations and facilities at universities. This common feature in all has these facets is racial preference. If diversity is the cure, however, why, instead of promoting racial harmony, has it brought racial divisions and conflict? The answer is not hard to discover. The unshakable fact is that you cannot cure racism with racism. To accept the diversity premise means to think in racial terms rather than in terms of individual character or merit. Taking jobs away from one group in order to compensate a second group to correct injustices caused by a third group who mistreated a fourth group at an earlier point in history, example 1860, is absurd on the face of it and does not promote justice. Rather, it does the opposite. Singling out one group for special favors breeds justified resentment and fuels the prejudices of real races. People are individuals. They are not interchangeable ciphers in an amorphous collective. Now, the traditional and essentially correct solution to the problem of racism has always been colorblindness. But this well-intentioned principle comes at an issue negatively. The correct principle is individual awareness. In the job sphere, there are only 3 essential things an employer needs to know about an individual applicant. Does the person have the relevant ability and knowledge or the capacity to learn readily? 2, is the person willing to exert the needed effort? And 3, does the person have good character, honesty, and integrity? It will be argued that the above view is too idealistic and that people often make judgments of other people based on non-essential attributes such as skin, color, gender, religion, nationality. This is, of course, does happen, but the solution is not to abandon the ideal, but to implement it consistently. Thus, organizational training should focus not on diversity worship, but on how to objectively assess or measure ability, motivation, and character in other people. And it says, the proper alternative to diversity, that is, to focus on the collective, is to focus on the individual and to treat each individual according to his or her own merits. Americans have always abhorred the concept of royalty, that is, granting status and privilege based on one's hereditary caste, because it contradicts the principle of what counts as self-made characteristics possessed by each individual. Americans should abhor racism in any form for the same reason. And this was an article called Individualism, the Only Cure for Racism by Edwin A. Locke, PhD, done on Fridays, December 12, 1997. The next article is called Racism and Individualism, posted by DJ Drummond, February 23rd, 2010. And it states, racism is an inherent weakness in a person, while individualism makes a person stronger. The difference can be shown through the difference of arrogance and self-confidence. The arrogant person asserts superiority by his person alone. That simple existence qualifies him to demand primacy, while self-confidence is rooted not in contention but knowledge of your own limits and growth. The balance between weakness and strength, risk and opportunity, and your ability to advance solutions and consensus. The arrogant man demands others do as he wills. The individual offers solutions and options and is open to alternatives. So with racism, the racist demands that his race be dominant in any situation, as is opposed to any debate or discussion, while the individualist accepts, even welcomes alternate perspective and options. The inevitable result of these paradigms is that racism stagnates and atrophies any demographic where it is prevalent, while individualism advances community goals and common ideals. You hear that pro-black, back to Africa, red, black, and green, Sambo motherfuckers? The next paragraph says, racists succeed only in isolated situations and only when they can intimidate individuals into silence and acquiescence. Consequently, racists are likely to choose fastest methods, force and threats, as well as suppression of and attacks upon perceived enemies and opponents. Individualists are aware that they cannot achieve their goals through force or intimidation, and so from the start must gain support through consensus building and alliances on moral strength of their argument. It is a reasonable measure of a person's character, therefore, to note the method of their presentation and attitude to different and opposing opinions. The next one that I'm going to read for you is collectivism is a tool of tyrants. And it states, tyranny feeds by feeding on human necessity. It examines what sustains us, what we hope for, what we desire, and what we love. And it uses those needs as leverage against us. Community versus Collectivism by Brandon Smith. You want safety. Tyrants will take it away and barter it back at a steep price. If you want to raise a family, you must accept the state as a part-time parent. If you want independence, you are labeled as a threat and done away with. Autocratic rulers are first and foremost salesmen. They convince us that life itself has a cost, that we are born indebted, and that all bills must be made payable to the establishment. First and foremost, we are sold on the idea that in all of this we are ultimately alone. It is within these manipulated concepts of cost and isolation that we discover the foundation of all totalitarian cultures, collectivism. Collectivism is a psychological prison derived from the beneficial instinct as old as humanity itself, to share experiences and knowledges, to build and create together. It is an instinct as essential to our survival as breathing. Collectivism uses this instinct as a weapon. It is a corrupted and poisoned harness of our intuitive nature. It is an inadequate and cancerous substitute for something that normally invigorates and supports healthy culture. In order for the state to elevate itself in importance above the individual, it must promote the idea that the individual does not exist, that you are only a byproduct of your environment. Junk science and establishment psychological therapists often treat the human mind as a mere bundle of chemicals and synapses. Existentialism attacks individualism from the philosophical end, suggesting that all actions and reactions are random results of a purely chaotic universe, while at the same time peddling moral relativism and apathy. Religious organizations that chose to abuse their positions of trust also feed collectivism by standing in the way of personal awareness or making it taboo to value the individual over the collective. Each of these tactics is a tool in the arsenal of collectivism meant to degrade our social admiration for individual thought. And fear and survival are powerful motivators. Without self-awareness and strength of character, these basic instincts can overwhelm rationality and conscience. Every collectivist feudalist system ever devised has used a common enemy or an iron hand to quell the dissent in the citizenry and to forcefully unify them, not under auspices of an honest cause, but a terror so profound as to drive them into malleable despair. Collectivist systems are always clashing with the bubbling tides of individual freedom. Because of this, they must continuously qualify their usefulness. There's always been an imminent threat over the horizon, otherwise the strangling regulations of the government serve no purposes. An inevitable condition of collectivism is the demonization of free thought. In a collective, everyone becomes a cog in a great machine. Anyone who chooses to step outside the box or point out a different view becomes a danger to the whole. A machine cannot function if all the parts are not working in harmony. Therefore, disagreement is not considered a civic duty. It is considered a crime that places everyone at risk. As a dissenter, you are not a person but a malfunction that must be dealt with. Placing needs of individuals over the needs of the government is now called selfishness. Now notice, gentlemen, those of you who are SYSBM, MGTOW, IPMOR, and such or whatever, notice how we are vilified and demonized on YouTube. And it's not really that many of us. They talk about these issues. You have GW3, shout out to you. We have Hardcore Tito. We got what's his name? Kid Organic talks about some things too. We got Kid Gackery Jones, Mad Bus Driver. There's a brother I speak with on Google Plus. His name is Jurai Bones. Brother, you need to start doing videos, man. You really, really need to start doing videos, because you always have some good knowledge and everything like that, and you need to start putting that stuff in YouTube videos. You get my subscription. Yeah. So right now we're going to go on to the next little paragraph here. It says, collectivist systems are notorious for promoting the idea that we are all one. However, they usually end up becoming the most antisocial and uncaring cultures to grace the planet. You cannot centralize or enforce charity, because then it is no longer charity, but slavery. So if history teaches anything, it teaches self-delusion in the face of unpleasant facts is folly. And that was a quote from Ronald Reagan. And it says, collectivism is the enslavement of the strong by the weak, the productive by the parasitic, and the good by the evil. So there you have it. So far, we are supposed to be thinking individually. And when you look at these pro-black, these so-called conscious people on here and everything, they talk about how, if you don't have the separatist mindset that they have, you somehow a coon. And notice that, you got niggas like Umar Johnson, Sarah Putin Confetti, and all these other so-called black leaders or whatever. They actually decry and they actually vilify, brothers like us that speak for ourselves. Because I really believe that their true motive is to get you on some land with them, and they're going to be the head nigga in charge. That's the ultimate goal of these pro-blacks. That's what I really believe. These motherfuckers are tyrants in the making. And you need to stay as far away from the black community, because it's a fucking matriarchy full of groupthink. Your intelligence, your creativity, your free thinking is not welcome there in the black community. And these dumb, deluded ass Negroes really believe that if we built some black nation or whatnot, that all these motherfuckers gonna wake up. They are done. And I know y'all don't like. I know that you pro-blacks don't like to hear that, but it's the fucking truth. No well-thinking man is about to go and deal with some fucking go under some motherfucking matriarchy. Nobody's doing that. And fuck you, you got a problem with it. With what I just said. Okay. Now, the next one is called individualism versus collectivism. It says, there are two basic ways of understanding the relationship between individuals in a group. The first way is individualism, which states that each individual is acting on her own, making their own choices, and to the extent they interact with the rest of the group, it's as individuals. Collectivism is the second way, and it views the group as the primary entity, with the individuals lost along the way. Of course, let's see. Objectivism supports individualism in this sense. In a different sense, individualism is to be whether the individual is different from everyone else, or whether he makes up his own mind about things or whatnot. But in the individualist, collectivist sense to the term, individualism just means that the individual is a separate entity making his own choices, thinking his own thoughts, and responsible for his own choices, which is how it's which is naturally how it should be. When a person goes out and and does something or whatnot, commits a crime, okay, we're gonna use let's say a black guy. He goes out and murders 20 people. They're not going to lock the entire race of black, all black people up. They're going to lock up that individual. And I don't, and here's the thing, we have to get out of this mindset that because, one black dude does that, now the white man, he gonna look at all of us different. Why are y'all so fucking worried about the white man? You pro-black niggas kill me. You hate the white people so much, but you can't keep them out your motherfucking mouth. How hypocritical is that? And another reason for collectivism is the idea of mob mentality. When people are in a group, they sometimes stop thinking and go with the wishes of the peers. Objectivists refer to this as second-handedness in a more general sense. But when someone is unwilling to think for themselves and accept the wishes of the people around them, it looks and smells a lot like a collective. The only flaw is that the individuals are choosing to go with their peers, and they can choose not to. Now, ethically speaking, if there are a number of problems with collectivism. For instance, because the collective is seen as having importance higher than the individuals that make it up, those same individuals are asked to sacrifice for it. It has created an intrinsic value and destroys one's ability to rationally pursue one's own self-interest. It also interferes with justice. Justice is concerned with making moral judgments about other people and acting accordingly. But collectivism destroys proper moral judgment by attributing value choices to the whole group instead of the person making the choice. Individualism is the proper approach to this problem. Moral judgments made by moral agents. The person making the decision gets credit or blame for it. Values are agent related, and the person makes his choices by seeing how the value impacts his life. It is the individual that ethics is concerned with, and collectivism just obscures this point. Well, I hope you gentlemen are still with me. I still have a lot of stuff to go over with you guys. As far as, like I said, the a lot of these articles about individualism or whatnot. I may not be able to go through all of them, because I kind of don't want to drag the stuff out. I usually, keep my videos, under 20, under 30 minutes or whatever. But if you like the articles, just leave a comment saying, hey, I like it, and just, send me your email in your, send me your email address in my private mailbox on YouTube. So, the next article I'm going to read is by Anne Wortham. She's a black woman, and actually one who I admire very much, and it's called "Because I'm an Individualist." And this was done November 1st, 1967. And I'm going to read you a couple snippets of it. It says, "You see, I am a Negro. I was born and raised in the segregated town of Jackson, Tennessee. I attended college at the famous pillar of Negro civil rights, Tuskegee Institute of Alabama. I grew up in a segregated town. I worked as a maid for white women. I was taught in college that I had to catch up and beat them. I have been discriminated against once in Washington, D.C., but a Negro demonstrator once called me a traitor. Some college classmates hinted that I was an Uncle Tom. A work supervisor called me a maverick, a white liberal. A white liberal accused me of committing treason against my race. In other words, I spent my growing years in the right environment and heard all the right dogma, but I turned out to be the wrong product. Everyone wants to know why. Why? Because I'm an individualist. It is as an individualist that I address myself to you. There are Southern white racists, the Northern white liberals, and the militant Negro racists, and the moderate Negro racists. At one time or another, depending on the circumstances, these groups are thought of by most in our country as being the opposite sides of the issue. This is a fallacy. There's another group in this country who stands in opposition to those who are opposed only in their means but who have all have the same end in mind. What many fail to recognize is that the proponents of Negro civil rights, black power, and white or black supremacy are on the same side of the issue. On the other side are people like me, the individualists, who have no need for group identification. These people of all races with varied backgrounds do not sacrifice themselves to others and do not ask others to sacrifice their lives to them. Individual rights or collective wishes. Those of us who have not had to think in terms of race are now being intimidated by a race of people who are demanding much more than a chance to live. With the help of their white cohorts, they have succeeded in jeopardizing the lives of all of us by demanding that we sacrifice our individual rights for their collective wishes. Pushing Congress to implement the theory from each according to his ability and to each according to his need is leading all us into collectivized slavery. Living as individuals, it would be far easier if black and white races would take their groupism away from this world to another universe where man does not exist. For what they preach is anti-life and anti-man. And I'm going to go with this. With justice for all. How do you deal with the brand of hatred we've experienced in the past months? You give it no sanction, no money, no food, nothing. You do it justice. You do not give it mercy. Mercy in the form of OEO projects, free food, clothing, housing, Medicare, and presidential commissions is not the answer. A race of people is strangling this nation, and they are doing so at the expense of the rights of others. When a man chooses to use force to obtain values, he is no longer to be dealt with as a man. He is to be dealt with as the brute he is, by force. And I mean anything from government welfare agencies that cannot operate except by forced taxation to the use of bricks, clubs, and guns. You do not plead with a sniper. You do not give goods to a man who had just finished looting another man's property. You do not claim as victims those who stood by when trouble was brewing and did nothing. Said nothing. You do not forgive the inexcusable. You hear that, black Christians? You was just so quick to forgive every white man that fucking hang your ass and your children. You don't give patience or audience to the destroyer. You don't give your destroyer reason to count on your pity or your guilt. You don't deal with people who ask for help, your help, in the tone of a threat. And that's by the great Anne Wortham. And this last little article I'm going to read to you is called "The Matrix Revealed: The Collective Experiment on Planet Earth" by John Rappaport. And I actually, you know what? I'm probably gonna do that in another video because I only got 4 minutes left or whatever on my little card or whatever. So I'm going to end this video and just stay tuned for part 2. Thank you.